And gold is on the rise again this week. I asked Daniel Lacalle if he puts it down to the central banks printing massive amounts of money. Daniel's the chief economist at the Chess's hedge fund.
Absolutely. If we look at what is happening globally, we see that more and more central banks are falling into the trap of very aggressive monetary policies, increasing money supply. And for a large proportion of citizens all over the world, the only way to preserve the value and the purchasing power of their savings and salaries is to purchase gold. That's why the gold price and also silver have been going up recently, and why they continue to be a good investment option for so many people. Additionally, it's interesting, but central banks themselves purchase more gold when they increase money supply, because they also need to diversify and increase their own reserves. So there's a double support on the gold price as monetary policy intensifies in its aggressiveness. On one side, citizens trying to escape from the risk of currency debasement, and central banks increasing their reserves.
When we talk about this currency debasement, we see some people online talking about even the US dollar is at risk of not being the world's reserve currency. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that the death of the US dollar as the world reserve currency is a story that comes up frequently. But in reality, there's numerous reasons why the US dollar continues to be the world reserve currency. The first one being that there is no alternative. The euro has redenomination risk and its own important monetary and fiscal challenges. The yuan is barely used globally, and at the same time, the Chinese government implements massive capital controls, so you cannot have a world reserve currency with capital controls, and so there are no alternatives. And people tend to forget when they talk about the dollar and its obvious challenges and the Federal Reserve policy is that a currency remains a world reserve one based on the fact that investors globally see that there is security and that there is a level of support for transactions around the world in that currency. And that only happens, if you think about it truly, with the United States dollar. Also, people tend to forget that monetary policy is not a game of who wins, but who loses first, because central banks all try to devalue in a certain way their currencies, and central banks all try to reduce the level of exposure of their citizens to savings. And if we look at the position of the US dollar relative to other currencies globally, both in terms of worldwide utilization, in terms of its support, and in terms of legal and investor security, there is no contender.
Daniel, really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.